Hello, and welcome to my channel.
Wigs by Tips.
Some know me as Wigs by Tips, others know me as Laundra Tyme. Some people know me by a secret mysterious third name that if you scour the dark web for, I'm sure it's out there. I promise it's not very interesting, it's just my legal name. I am a drag queen and wig stylist, wig designer. I have a wig business called Wigs by Tips. I make wigs for drag performers, for stage plays. I've made a lot of wigs for queens on RuPaul's Drag Race. I've made some wigs for some monsters on the Boulet Brothers Dragula. If you are from the Bay Area and you've ever heard of a thing called Beach Blanket Babylon, I was also the wig master there. And I also make wigs for lots of local legends. We are live. No, we're not live. I'm recording from San Francisco, California, from my workshop. This is where all of the magic happens. I've been putting off making something like this for a really long time, and I'm really excited to start sharing some of the crazy wig adventures I get into on a daily basis, just making weird stuff. So please like, subscribe. You actually might be the very first liker or the very first subscriber, since this is my first video. Click that bell for notifications. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I will figure it out, hopefully by the time this goes up on the internet. Today we are going to be doing a very fun wig adventure, a wig transformation, if you will. We are going to be making a wig for the amazing drag queen. She's beautiful. She is talented. I can't believe she wants me to make a wig for her. It's me. It's me. It's Laundra Tyme. I'm going to be I'm going to be remaking this wig that has been obviously sitting in a bin for a very long time. She's a little crunchy. She's a little fried. She's a little Golden Girls. I'm not sure if I'd ever wear her again in this state. And because I'm making a wig for me, I get to use basically garbage to I love garbage. I love garbage. I love working with old hair, with scraps, because I'm essentially a raccoon. When I'm making a wig for myself, I get to use old materials because, it's just for me. I have bins and bins of scraps of old wigs in my garage that if I don't do something with, they're just going to sit there forever. So whenever I'm making a wig for myself, I'm always like, what weird old piece can I use as a base? Like, I will go to great lengths to avoid having to use a new wig on myself, just because waste not, want not. I'm also going to address some issues with this wig that I had, which is I have kind of a big head, and lace fronts don't always fit my head very well. Like, they don't always go all the way down, and when I'm putting a new lace on this, I'm going to be able to make sure that it goes down on the sides. We'll get there when we get there. I'm going to show you all the materials I'm going to be working with, and I'm going to go step by step, turning this into a very fabulous new style. We are going to be making her into a Speak Now era Taylor Swift long wavy fantasy, for the sole reason that I was booked for a Taylor Swift drag brunch later this month, and I don't have anything to wear. So I'm going to turn this into the second wig I need for this show. I have a bunch of old wefts from old wigs that I'm going to be using. So this is like a standard ribboned lace front wig with the wefts being attached with these ribbons in the back. Some wigs are like a full cap of fabric that the wigs are sewn onto. This is just has ribbons. So because of that, I'm not going to be stripping the wefts to save for later. I'm actually going to be sewing on top of them. That's because having the wefts there will keep the structural integrity as I'm working on it. Where if it were a full cap wig, I would probably strip the wefts and save them for later, because I have a really big issue with not being able to throw away anything. Like, if I can possibly use it for a craft later, it's going in a Tupperware in my garage, probably never to be touched again. We are reducing the amount of garbage in my garage. We are going to be at a net positive after this is done. This is just a standard lace front with like a 2-inch lace all around the hairline. I'm going to be putting a new lace on and sewing it onto a head that is actually the shape of my head, so I know exactly where it's going to fall. And I'm pretty much going to be putting all new hair on this. And I know what you're thinking. Wouldn't it be so much easier to just get a new wig or use new hair? And I assure you, you're right. That is probably true. I get more fulfillment out of making something beautiful out of something that it would be thrown away. Since this is a wig for me, I get to really build it from scratch and make sure it's exactly what I want. And also, it's a labor of love. Like you're taking something that you were going to throw away and then making something that you're going to keep forever. I think is a really fun. I have a really bad habit when I'm at a gig of other performers buying hair off of my head. I have left gigs without a wig on just because I'm like, yeah, I'll make it again. But when I make it out of garbage, I'm like, you don't want this wig. It's made out of garbage. My mentality is always like, oh, I'll just remake this for myself. I never do, but I could. I have bins and bins and bins of scraps of old wigs in my garage that look a lot like this. They're just like little pieces of wigs that I didn't need for whatever project that I was working on. That I'm like, I'll use someday, and I never do, except for today, which is when I'm using it. So what I do is I take a seam ripper. I'll go grab one. So I take a seam ripper, and I just take the weft off, and then I pull it like that, and then I have a weft. You can buy wefts like this, but if they're in your garage, they're free. So I've been doing that for a couple days now, and I have a bunch of honey blonde hair from a couple different wigs. Normally you want to use all the same color, but because I'm doing like a blonde mix, I think this is actually going to make it look a lot more dynamic because there's going to be a couple different shades of blonde throughout it. Hopefully it's going to come together and look more natural because it won't be like one solid honey blonde color like this. I've also, as I was ripping them out, separated them into lengths because I'm obviously going to start with the longest in the back and then work my way up. And even though this is a really painstaking, and you will see how painstaking this process is, I really like it because it gives you complete control over how much hair goes where and exactly how you want the wig to fit. People talk a lot about like, double stack, triple stack, and a lot of mentality for drag hair is more hair the better. And fundamentally, I agree with that statement because the bigger the hair, the closer to whatever deity you believe in. I like having the control and really thinking about the wig as I'm sewing it. Where do I want the hair to be and where do I want it to be thickest? I'm going to get this set up and then we're going to start taking this thing apart. So the first thing we're going to do to this wig is put the new lace on it. The reason why I put the lace on first is because I think of the lace as more of the bones of the wig rather than the meat of the wig. If you're a vegetarian, I'll think of a different analogy. It's also easier for me to see what I'm doing when there's less going on up here. I can kind of see where I need to be sewing. I've grabbed a honey blonde lace. This is actually probably from this exact wig. It's just a honey blonde wig lace. It'll look better when it's sewed on the wig. And I'm going to be using a wig block that is the shape of my head. And the reason why I do this is because when I put this wig on it and I'm sewing the lace on, I'm going to line the lace on right where I need my hairline so that when I take it off, it will fit my head perfectly. This has been a really game changer for me, especially if you have a weird shaped head, a big head. Maybe I'll show that in a different video, like how to make these, but I feel like there's a lot of wig tutorials out there that'll already show you how to do this. So we're just going to be using this one that's already made. You see that if I put the widow's peak where the widow's peak needs to be, the sideburns don't come anywhere close to where my actual sideburns are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this part off so that the new lace has some space to go where it needs to go up here. And then I'm going to keep a lot of this length over here and extend it. So when I put the lace on, this will replace that part, and then this will go all the way down here. And then I'll sew darts in it as I'm going to make sure that it's round and will fit the shape of the head, because if you sew something in a straight line, it won't line up to the curvature of your head. So I'm going to trim this off right now and then we're going to get started sewing. I'm going to trim off some of the lace so that I have room to put the new lace on. What I'm looking for is, see where the cap ends and the wefts start? That's kind of where the temples are on your head. And that's where I'm going to cut a divot in to give space for the widow's peak on the new lace. I want to keep the length on the sides because that's where I need the extra space. I don't need extra space on top. So I kind of go roughly where the wefts meet the cap and I start cutting and I go all the way into the middle and then I do the same thing from the other side. If I go all the way and just cut straight across, I end up with a less even line. And then after I'm done cutting, see how this is all I cut off, which is just basically the widow's peak. I am now not lining the lace up to the hairline. I'm just trying to get it so it's fitting where it'll fit on my head. And then I take some of these trusty boutonniere pins, which I love, and just securing the top in place. And then I'll take some more pins, go to the back, and stretch it out so that the wig is stretched out. Whenever you're doing any kind of sewing like this on a wig, you want to make sure that whatever you're sewing on is stretched out to where it's going to be on your head, or else you're going to make the elastic part of the wig no longer elastic, because you're just going to make that not be able to stretch. And now we're going to take the scrap lace and block it on the head where we want it, so that when we sew it, it's going to fall exactly where I want it on the hairline. See, now you can see that I have about an inch gap on the front of the wig as well as the sides. And that means that I'm going to have a pretty even seam to work with when I'm stitching. So I'm going to start by placing this right smack dab. See, I have that center line here, so I know where to match it up. And then I'm going to take some quilting pins and block the widow's peak exactly where I want it. I like to do this in like 3-inch portions and work my way down either side. Once I've gotten that 3-inch portion pinned down, I take the lace and I flip it up, as so. And then I stretch the new lace over the old lace, and then I take pins and I secure it in the back. Doing it portion by portion keeps it from pilling in the wrong places. You want to make sure it's taut the entire way down and not snagging. Once I've secured the back, flip it back over, rinse, repeat. I do another about 3 inches. And I place the hairline right where I want it. See, I can see the little hairs lay over. You pin it exactly where you want it to be when you're done. So there's no guesswork. I'll stretch the old lace as far as it'll go and then pin the new lace. Stretch the old lace and then pin the new lace. I'm just going to pin that down. And secure this back there. Now we'll do the other side. Get this last bit secured where it needs to be. And then we've got our new hairline. Now we're going to start sewing. I usually use upholstery thread. This is the strongest thread I've found. It's not my favorite thread to use, but it does come in the most colors. The reason why I like using this twine rather than the upholstery thread is it's a little bit rougher and the knots hold better. And it also just, it's less slick, so it doesn't move around as much. And because this is kind of that honey blonde color, I get to use this. So now we are going to attach the lace to the old lace. I flip it forward and look at the seam I'm going to be working with. I like to use a small hooked needle like this. You can use whatever size you feel comfortable with. I find this to be the easiest to maneuver the way I need to. This is about 3 times as long as the seam I'm working with. You probably don't need as much, but one of my pet peeves is running to the end of the seam and then realizing I just have like 1 or 2 inches more to go and I run out of thread. So I always cut off a little bit more than I need. A little bit wasteful, sure, but it saves me some grief. I tie a knot up here. This is divided in half. And then I go into the center of the wig. I like to start at the center, go all the way down one side, and then start back at the top and then go down the other side. The reason why I like doing this is because I think it spreads out the tension and it makes sure that the entire lace isn't depending on one piece of thread holding it all together. I'm going to be sealing off the seam every couple stitches just in case, but I'm actually not even sure if this is how physics works. This could have absolutely no this could have no effect on the durability of the wig, but it makes me feel better about it, so I do it. So I start right where the widow's peak would be, and then I kind of dig into the bottom wig to anchor it. Then I loop through the hoop I made, pull it like that, and then I seal it with a knot, just to be safe. More knots, the better. Then I work my way down using the hook needle to go into the base wig and then up through the new lace. I use what I like to call a chain stitch. Friends of mine have informed me that what I'm doing is actually not a chain stitch. A chain stitch is something different, but I don't really know how to sew, and this is what I call it. I hold it up and make a little loop, and then I sew under the loop, and it kind of catches itself, and it spreads out the tension so that if you were to sew it like just a loop, it would not be as durable. If you know what this kind of stitch is called, please let me know in the comments. I have looked it up. I tried to start calling it that, but to me, this is a chain stitch. It's just, that's my word for it. Then I just start working my way down. I'm also kind of I'm hooking the top lace and then pulling it down so that I'm making it as taut as possible because I want the lace under it to be very flat. Every couple stitches, I'm going to catch it and tie it off. This just means that, like, if something happens to the seam you're making, it won't completely unravel. It'll just unravel in between the knots you made. So I'd say like every 4 or 5 loops, I make a knot, depending how confident I am that day or how reckless. I should really be pinning this to the side so make my life easier. Take the new lace, section it off, and then I'll take this hair, section this off. So another thing to be cognizant of is accidentally sewing your wig to the wig head, which I have done. I have finished a wig and then only realized when I was completely done that one of my stitches went through the canvas head and I can't get it off. Sometimes I've had to like snip the thread and then seal it with glue, and sometimes the whole thing falls apart and I have to start over. Because this is covered in duct tape, saran wrap, and packing tape, I'm a little bit less worried about that just because if I do hook the tape, it'll just rip the tape. If you hook the canvas head, it'll really hold on to it. So don't try to dig too hard. Removing the pins as I go, seal it off a little bit, and we'll keep going. And then when I get to the bottom where the sideburn is, I tie it off and then kind of inspect how much further down I have to go, just because you really want the bottom of the lace to be secure, because if it's gonna rip, it's gonna rip over here. So I will just kind of go down a little bit further than I need to, and then work my way back up so that at least at the very end of the seam, it's double ply with thread. And then we've got half of the seam done. See, it's pretty well attached. And on this side, who would know? Who would know? The lace is now exactly the shape of my head. Now I'm going to start back at the top and do the other side. And I've already got my needle prepared. I like to anchor it 1/2 inch into the first seam just so that they overlap. Kind of they help each other out, holding each other. Isn't that sweet? Then I'm just doing the same thing. Story of my life. Doing the same thing over and over and over every day. I really just style wigs all day, every day, and just often are recreating the same styles over and over and over again, which, I'm happy that people are buying them. But I always look forward to doing projects like this where I get to do things a little bit differently, kind of build the plane as it's flying. It keeps my creative juices flowing. If you just do the same thing every day, it'll drive you nuts. And also, I think when you approach a medium that you are very comfortable with and force yourself to do it intentionally, not the way that it's supposed to be done, it may fail, but you also might learn something or learn a new technique that nobody's ever thought of. That's how I have always approached wig styling. And as I'm working my way down, I'm keeping an eye on the tension of the lace. Like, I'm trying to make sure that this is as flat as possible. So if there's a little bit of a bundle, I'll try to grab it earlier in the lace or further up in the top lace to cinch it so that this is really taut. And that's how you get the hairline that really fits your head. Removing the pins as I go. That goes all the way to the edge of the lace. This was a small wig. Like, there's something to be said about styling the wig on a head that is the same circumference as your head, but sometimes the cap is just too small. Like, it does not matter how big the head you're working on is. It's just made for a very tiny head or a very big head. Now I'm at the bottom of the lace and I'm working down the seam so that it's extra strong. You can even connect it to the wig cap if you want an extra little anchor. Why not? This is your monstrosity. You get to do whatever you want. You decide what's good. And there we go. I actually just realized that the wig didn't have a tag in it. I get these Wigs by Tips tags made so that you always know you're wearing a Wigs by Tips, but I also collect old ones when wigs get decommissioned or are just too old to wear anymore. I'll take the tags off and I have a little jar full of them. So when I make special wigs like this, I like to put old tags on them because whenever I see them, I'm like, I can remember exactly where I was in my life when Wigs by Tips tags look like this. I've gotten them from a couple different companies, so they've changed over the years. If you have a very old Wigs by Tips, it might be a solid pink tab, but the new ones look like this. So whenever I will put this wig on, I'll remember how old I am. And I just cure it to the back. Okay. Now the final step before we start building the meat on top of these bones, the final bone to put into this wig is a big comb that I am going to sew right here. This is something I started doing recently, and it's really made wearing wigs a lot easier for me. If you are a person who has enough hair to make a little ponytail at the top, some people put duct tape on their head and they pin into that. Having one of these combs sewn right here will hook into that, and your wig will not go anywhere. This is hopefully not going to be too heavy of a wig, but just having this in here, I will put the wig on, snap it in, and I really don't even need to pin it. It'll just hook on really well. You can get these pretty much anywhere. I like the hard ones as opposed to the ones that come in the wigs, these kind of flimsy ones. They definitely work, especially if you're just using them to hook on the sides. But if you need an anchor, you're going to want a big plastic one. So I'm going to take now one size up hooked needle. I've just found the small hooked needles are a little bit not right for this particular project. I'm going to take some thread, do the same thing I did before with the loops, tie it off with a little double knot. That's not going anywhere. I hold it where I want it. This is actually probably the most frustrating part of this entire process, just because it gets caught on these little, what are they called? Fingers. The fingers of the comb. So it makes it very difficult to sew. So I just kind of line it up with the center of the cap, and then I loop it through. The first one's the hardest. First cut is the deepest. This is one of those things, like once you get one side anchored, it becomes increasingly easier as you go. Now I've anchored one side, and I'm just going to do the same chain stitch. That's not a chain stitch. And then I do, see how it just gets caught like that? It happens pretty much every other stitch, and it is just a not fun process. Ugh. If you have not caught on, wig styling is a whole lot of things that are not fun, but it's the only thing I've ever been good at. So I'm sticking to it, even though I find many aspects of it incredibly frustrating. Before I was a wig stylist, I had many different jobs, and I was horrible at every single one of them. I was a barista. I made the worst latte personally I've ever had. I did a little bit of wait staff work at a little breakfast nook. Was horrible at that. I did retail. Can't sell things. And wigs were the first thing that I ever tried that I felt like I was exceptional at, you know? I very proudly say I'm not a hairstylist. I melt plastic for a living. And I honestly love melting plastic. I think the physics of manipulating synthetic hair, how it remembers shape depending on how you apply heat to it, I find it really, really interesting to just trial and error, kind of learning how hair responds to dry heat, to wet heat, to direct forms of heat versus indirect forms of heat. There's a whole lot of chemistry, not like math chemistry, but like, oh, how does this do this to this other thing? Oh, telling you, this is the worst part. I cannot wait for this to be done. Come on, just a couple more stitches. Ow, falling apart. Okay, I'm gonna tie this off. Now this is gonna look janky because it kind of is, but it always looks janky when I do it, just because when it catches the little teeth, it's always a little messy. But this is on pretty strong. It's not gonna fall out. So we're like a third of the way done. Now we get to do the fun part. I've got the wig now blocked on the head properly with some tape, and I got it blocked in the back. I am going to section this hair off, and we're going to be working on the back. This is really the meat and potatoes of this wig transformation, or the eggplant and portobello mushrooms if you're a vegetarian or a vegan. So I know that I said that I was not going to take any of these wefts off, but I lied. You just never know. You never know if I'm kidding. I am going to take some of the wefts off the very back because I don't want the back of the wig to have like baby hairs right there. You'd be able to see it. I want the first hair to be the longest hair. So I'm going to take my seam ripper and I'm just going to take off the wefts down here. Earlier I said that keeping the wefts on are going to hold the structural integrity. These wefts back here aren't doing anything for me. They're not actually holding the ribbons together. They're just sewn on to the very nape of the neck. So I can get rid of these. And you know what? I might save them because you never know when you're going to need this piece of hair. Like, think of all the things I could do if with just this one piece of hair, I could glue it to my skin and I could have a little baby hair there. I could save all of them and make another tiny little wig. I'm just kidding. I'm going to throw these away. This wig is not sentimental to me in that way where I need to save every single piece of scrap. There are some wigs I've inherited from my drag grandmother or someone special that I will take lots of care to hold on to the hair. Even if the wig becomes unwearable, I will take all the wefts off and sew them onto something else because, witchcraft. And also it's like, when I die, I would love someone to take my old wigs, sew them into their wigs, and then take me to all their shows so that I'm not just, stuck in a box for the rest of eternity. Should I save this? No, throw it away. Throw it away! Let it go. Let it go, Laundra. Let it go. I'm no Indina Menzel. I like to think of myself as a late career Joni Mitchell. I sing like Joni Mitchell after 30 years of smoking. Then I just rip, 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 rip. It's like popping a pimple. Like, I got a good one. So I took off all of the wefts at the very back of the wig. So now this is just a bare. You can kind of see this, the bones of the nape of the neck. And then this is where we're going to build the very bottom of the hair. I have these wefts here. These are my longest pieces that I was able to find. And they're in two different colors. They're almost the same, but this one is a little bit less of a rich yellow honey blonde, and then this is a really golden honey blonde. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one from each and then alternate them so that it looks natural. If I were to just use one of them and then switch to the other when I ran out, you would see a big block of one color and it would be very noticeable, even though these are very subtle colors. So if I were to walk into the room wearing a wig in this color and then leave the room and change into a wig of this color, you may not notice. But if they're standing in two big chunks next to each other, you'd be like, who messed up your wig? So I'm going to go for 3 in the back, and I may switch to 2 as I get higher up on the wig, but I want it to be pretty thick. And I have all this hair, so I say, why not put it all on? So I'm going to start with 3. I'm going to put a lot on this little nape, and then as we work our way up, I'm just going to kind of follow the pattern and sew on top of the wefts that are already there, so they'll all get doubled or tripled. We're going to start with one of these golden honeys and one of these ash blondes, and we'll sandwich the honey blonde inside the cooler toned one. I'll line them all up, get some pins, and then pin it on my head. I would love to be able to run this under a sewing machine and just not have to sew it by hand, but I find sewing hair to be really anxiety provoking because it always catches my machine and I just will avoid sewing hair if I can. And also, there's something about making a bunch of tiny little stitches that calms me down. This is my first group of wefts, as you can see. I've pinned it right there. There's my small one. Thread it through and tie it off. For me, wig styling is like you learn how to do one thing and then you use that one thing 50 different ways to do all the other things, but essentially it's the same skill or the same operation. I find this to be like a mix of very, very tedious and also really relaxing. You're really spending time with the wig. You're looking at every inch of it for a very long time. Every inch of it. Okay, first stitch done. Going to seal that off, cut my string. And now we've started rebuilding the hair. So now we can see what the wig is going to be at its very longest, which is pretty long. I think this hair is 24 inches. It's always weird with wig lengths because sometimes they measure from the top and sometimes it's like the length of the hair. I'm pretty sure this would be considered longer than a 25-inch wig because this is going to be like down on my back. And look at that nice mix. You would never know that that's from 2 old wigs, would you? You'd think, wow, that's a slightly fried Peace. And now I'm gonna grab some more hair and we're gonna do the next row. Take another 3 pieces. The last one I did 2 honeys and 1 darker, and now I'm doing 2 darker and 1 honey so that the distribution is spread out. And I'm gonna use all of the long, before I transition to the next length of hair, I'll use up all of the long hair, because you can always cut long hair, but you cannot make a wig grow, which you would be surprised how many people will come to me with an old wig asking for it to be restyled, and the picture they send me is like of a longer wig, and I'm like, what do you expect me to do? I mean, I guess what they expect me to do is what I'm doing now, which is like replace the hair and make it a long wig, but I don't want to do this all the time. Like I said, this is a labor of love. This is not a tutorial, or this isn't I would not recommend doing this to anyone unless you really like torturing yourself, or you're like me and you like doing things the hard way because it's fun. We have fun. It's like playing with Legos, but you're using a sharp needle and stab yourself a lot. I'm just gonna keep tying it off. And this also gives you a nice time to like meditate and think about what you want the wig to be, what you want it to look like, all of the fun times you're going to have with it. Dear wig, do not tingle. Please be beautiful. Make me look awesome. So now we have the first 2 rows done. Brush this out a little bit. And there you go. We're going to start working our way up, weft by weft, making a new wig, basically. This wig will bend to my will. I'm going to take my thinning shears and take this hair and just thin almost all of the hair off. I don't care if there's some hair because this is going to be teased, so like you're not going to be able to see it. But if there's a big chunk of like old hair that's this long, it's going to look a little weird. So these are just like baby hairs or something. And then I'm going to take these wefts. See, the pieces that I took these off of were tiny little pieces of the wig. Normally when you buy wefts, they're very long. So you could just cut them as long as you need to and then rinse, repeat. I have to piece them together to make them long enough, or just choose pieces that are actually long enough. But eventually I'm going to have to just piece together 4 or 5 to make an entire row because the wefts aren't long enough. Another thing I'm looking out for is inside of the wig, there are, just grab a wig and show you. Why can't I find a wig in this place? So inside of a wig, there are these little elastic bands that can control how tight the wig is. And so when I'm sewing these, I have to be conscious about where they are, because what I can accidentally do is stitch them shut basically along with the weft, which is a bad idea. So just while I'm working back here, I have to be conscious of where it is and that I'm not sewing right on top of it. I'll hide it. Come on. Come on. Now I'm going to take some of the other color. Ooh, that's a good, nice long piece. That'll be less work. Layer it on top of the first one. Now I need another little piece to just fill in that little gap. This is why I don't throw anything away, because some people might strip this off of a wig and say, what am I going to do with a weft this size? And look, it's the perfect size for this. This validates all of my bad behaviors. This says, nope, you need to save everything. It's absolutely imperative. You will use it someday. Well, it was useful that once. Okay, I think I'm only going to do 2 on this row because that was a pain to pin. And when you're making wigs for yourself, you get to decide what's right, and you get to decide how much hair you want. And if you don't want to do more work, you don't have to. Now that I've gotten to the actual weftage, I'm going to start from the middle and go from side to side like I did on the hairline. An easier way to get everything done without losing my mind or losing my place. I just finished sewing the last of the longest of my wefts, as you can see. I'd say we got about a third of a wig done, and this is pretty thick. I did 3 ply at the bottom, and then I switched to 2. And now I'm going to transition into the next length, which is basically just the rest of the wefts I have. And now I have a selection of 3 different kind of honey blondes. And one of them has like a bit of a root, as you can see here, because the wig that I took it from had a root. And so I'm going to have to be strategic about hiding this because the rest of the wig doesn't have a root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fold it in about an inch into where the weft starts so that the root is hidden by other honey blonde hair on the sides. And then this will be masked, hopefully. I've also never done this before, so this could look awful. We're going to see. Hopefully that will keep it from looking strange. Unless strange is what you're going for. I always love a weird wig. You know, a lot of wig stylists, well, I guess everyone, we have to get our hair from somewhere. And unless you're working with a factory where you can really dictate what color hair you're using, we're kind of all using the same color codes, the same hair color combos. And once you start getting into drag wigs, you'll be able to see styled wigs and be like, I know that color. And you'll start seeing them everywhere. So I really like doing stuff like this where nobody will have this mix of blonde because it literally doesn't exist except for on this wig. And I think that's how you get a unique look and a unique signature style where you have a wig that literally no one else can have because you made it yourself. And now I'm going to take on top of this rooted piece, a piece of solid honey blonde. I'm going to put it over it to mask it. See? And now you can't even see the root. And I also think the texture mix is going to come out really nice because hair has different textures depending on what kind it is. I'm sure there are names for the different kinds. I don't know them, but I can tell this hair feels different than this hair. And I think having a mix of them will give it a fun texture. You know, I like Stevie Nicks blonde hair where it's a little wild, it's a little rowdy, it's maybe not brushed. That's my kind of hair. I don't like things that are too, at least for myself. I like to look a little wild. I like to look like a witch of the waste. I guess not the witch of the waste. That's that bad analogy. A woman of the forest, like you've come across me in a clearing in the wood, and you come into my little cottage, and I cook you in my oven. Just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Isn't this fun? I can just imagine people watching this and thinking, why would I ever want to do this? Why would I ever put myself through all of this work? Is this a problem that money can solve? Yes, it can, but I enjoy it. I've only done this a couple times where I take a wig and I completely take it apart and build it back up from scratch, but I think the end result is always very impressive. Everything's gonna be okay. Okay, so now this is the second layer, or the first layer shift of the wig. So you can see that the bottom layer is down here, and then now this is the second longest piece, and it's only about 4 inches shorter, but it's gonna give a nice transition and also make the wig as long as I want it to be. Now I'm gonna rinse, repeat, and do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 20 to 40 more times. I can do it. I'm finally done. That took an absurd amount of time, but I think it looks great. Let's take a look at her. If you part the hair, you can see that the dark rooted hair is in there, and I got it all the way up to the front. So when it's curled, I don't think you should be able to tell because all of the hair on the outer shell of it will be honey. I think the length is good. I think the thickness is kind of nuts. And now we're going to start curling. There's a couple ways that you can curl synthetic hair if it is high heat resistant, which some wigs say that they're high heat resistant, and I don't believe it. I've tried to curl with hot tools on them and it does not work at all. Steam is the most, I say, common use for wig styling. Synthetic hair is more like fabric than it is hair. It reacts to different types of heat differently, like direct forms of heat a la a curling tool versus indirect heat such as steam. So steam is a lot more gentle than a direct heat source. I think that being as gentle as possible will give me the results I want. I also really want to control where the wave goes in this wig because I want it to be a very gentle wave. A lot of people, when they're curling wigs, will use a roller set with a wire mesh roller such as this, and that would be fine. I use roller sets for most of my styling, but for today, because I really want the control, I'm going to be curling with a wooden dowel and a hand steamer. This takes a lot more time. It's a lot more labor intensive, but I think it's the best way, especially for having control exactly where the wave is. You can control how much distance there is between each coil. Got a bunch of these different rods so I can curl with different sizes. I'm going to be using, I think I'm going to use a big one for this because I want it to be kind of a chunky wave. And we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. It's going to take a while, but we'll have lots of time to chat. I think I have accumulated all of the tools I'm going to need for this. I have my hand steamer plugged in down here. I've got a brush to keep the hair brushed. I've got my dowel that I'm going to be curling with, and I've got some clips to section the hair off. I'm also have some hat pins. I love hat pins. These are excellent for wig styling just because they're so long and you can stab them into a wig block. I use these to, when I finish a curl, I'll lay it over a hat pin to keep it out of the way so that the steam of the next curl doesn't interfere with the curl that I had just curled. When you're doing curling with a rod like this, you have to be strategic about where you're shooting the heat, because if you're shooting the heat, the old curl gets hit by the heat, it's gonna fall out. So you have to kind of, you'll see, it's a fun little game of what's that game? The limbo. It's like a game of limbo. I guess it's like a reverse game of limbo because the hardest ones are at the beginning because there's so much hair to deal with, and then it subsequently gets easier and easier as we get to the top. So I'm going to start with the bottom of the wig because I find that to be the easiest direction to go. I'm going to section out about one row of curls. That's about 3 inches. There we go. Just get, look how much hair is on this wig now. And then I'm going to divide it in half. I want the coils to go away from the face and divide the back in half. So this half of the head, this half, this half of the head, the coils are going to be going this way, and then this half of the head, the coils will be going this way. So I divide the hair in half so that I have one direction for half of it and the other direction for the other. That was a very roundabout way for explaining. Then I'm going to take one of my hat pins, stab it into the block over here. See how it's just sticking out? And then I go like that. So the hair is pretty much out of the way. This is just like a standard little hand steamer. I'm trying to find a bigger one because I would like a steamer that holds a little bit more water. I have to replace the water pretty frequently with this. I also like to carry a little water bottle next to my steamer so I don't have to run to the kitchen every time I need to refill it up. Saves me a lot of time. I'm grabbing, I like to do the curls a small amount of hair at a time. The more hair you curl at a time, the less definition you're going to get and the less control you're going to have of what it looks like when it's fully styled. So I'm going to hold the dowel at the base of the wig and wind it around. I want it to be pretty curly, but I don't want it to be like Shirley Temple. So if I wanted to be super, super curly, I would be curling this on top of itself. So I would be winding it and wrapping the hair around itself so that this is much higher up. I'm now just coiling it around so it's right next to the next loop. Does that make sense? See how there's a gap in between all of the coils? This would give a really loose wave. Actually, I might want to do that. I think that with this wig, less might be more. I'm going to see how the first one turns out, and I'm going to make an executive decision. I can visualize what the entire wig will look like afterwards. It's like wig foresight. You have to tune into the wig's potential and see into the future of what the wig has the potential of becoming. All right, our steamer is just about ready. Now, because this is the first curl, I don't have to be super delicate about where I shoot the steam because the steam is not going to uncurl anything because I haven't curled anything yet. I start at the bottom because once you get the bottom set, it kind of holds on to the wooden dowel a little bit better, to where if I started at the top and worked my way down, I would be struggling to keep this taut. But once I've sealed this with steam, it kind of stays. Isn't this riveting? I don't know. I like control. I'm a Virgo, if I haven't mentioned that yet. Then I hold it while it cools down. The way that synthetic hair works is it'll remember the shape that it's in once you raise it to a certain temperature, and it'll stay in that shape if it goes back to a normal temperature still in that shape. So if I were to steam this and then take it out immediately, the curl would just fall out. What keeps the shape is the cool down. You have to look at each curl and say, is this correct? Because if you're not doing that with every curl, you will find yourself halfway up the wig and realize you have to redo a curl all the way down here, and it's much more difficult to go back to recurl than it is to just redo it when you're at that point in the wig. Okay, so this is our first curl. I think this came out really good. I think I'm going to do the whole wig with the gap in between all the coils. I think this is the texture I want. See how it goes in that corkscrew, and it's not curling in on itself. It's not like a doodle curl. Like, this is a wig that I did with a roller set, and you can see how much curlier this is to a coil like this. That's going to be as opposed to woo woo woo. I like giving my wigs voices, or the curls voices. Now I'm going to put another hat pin into the wig block, in the section that curl away. See how it's staying out of the way? And now when I curl this, I have all of this room to work with. Now I'm going to do the same thing, curling away from the face, giving the coil about a 1/2 inch gap in between coils. And then we do it again. 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 Wig styling can be very monotonous if you don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is, I think, why some people don't like wig styling. It can be very, very tedious. I always really enjoyed making friendship bracelets when I was a kid, like at summer camp. I love lanyards. And for me, this is the same kind of thing where it's like I'm building a little friendship bracelet that I wear on my head. It's kind of a weird way of putting it, but it makes sense to me. Sometimes getting the very end of the curl is a little tricky because you don't want to steam your finger. You probably will burn your hand a couple times doing this. I've gotten pretty good at it, learning how to avoid the steam with my finger and like holding just the very tip of it here so I can nail that with the steam. But I inevitably burn my hand all the time. I'm covered in burns and scars. See how this curls and then you have this gap here? This tells me that I didn't get enough heat from here to here. I'm gonna do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Take 2. Isn't this fun? Are you not having fun yet? I'm having the time of my life. So we got our first 2 coils, and now I can move to the other side. And now I'm going to curl these away from the face going that way. There's a middle ribbon in the back of these ribbon wigs that I can always tell where exactly the middle is, and I use that too. You can always count on either sides how many ribbons there are. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay, that's the most. So another reason why I like using old hair is there's something about synthetic hair that how it behaves after it's been curled and styled and worn and then restyled. It acts very different than new hair out of a bag when you curl it. It's easier to tease, it holds its shape better, it's a little bit fried, so having it be a little bit easier to mat, easier to rat, makes, I think, for a better product. So I see this wig made out of old hair as, I see it as like an heirloom tomato version of a wig. Like, you wear the hair, you put it in a wig, and then you cut it out, put it in another wig, and it just kind of gets better and better. I always prefer styling hair that has been styled before. I find it to be, it's a little bit more work because you have to like brush it out and stuff, but getting the hair to do what you want it to do, I find it to be much easier than on a new wig. But hey, every wig has to start out new at some point. So if we only used old wigs, we would never have any new old wigs. I probably shouldn't be bashing new wigs. I sell new wigs, which is a great time to bring up. I have an online shop, wigsbytips.com. If you ever need styled hair, if you're a performer, or you need something for Halloween, or you just want to look fabulous, I have a shop where you can buy lots of my hair. Not my hair that I make. And I make every style from scratch. Not from scratch. I style every wig myself. Nothing's out of a bag. I mean, the wig is out of a bag. I pull the wig out of a bag and then I style it. And I don't know if you can see from all the way over there, but just the really subtle root that we got because I put the solid honey on top of it. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I think this is going to make for hopefully a very convincing Taylor Swift fantasy. I am myself a recovering Swiftie. I was an OG fan, like self-titled album onwards, like Speak Now, Fearless era was kind of my game. I did not like Poets Department. I thought that was a bad album. I think Life of a Showgirl is kind of a flop, unfortunately. I'm actually doing one of the songs, Fate of Ophelia, for the drag brunch. That's like the only one I think is good on the album because there's some kind of fantasy. Where's the story of the showgirl? One song on the album talks about showgirls. I wanted the life and death of a showgirl, like more than one chapter in her life. I would have liked every song on that album to be about Shakespeare. The life of a Shakespeare. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Nice. Those look fine. Those look fine. Section these off and then work my way on the other side. A cup of coffee. And then I'm just gonna do this over and over and over again. All right, we are on our final few curls. That took me a very long time, but it's coming out great. I think they look really nice. I go towards where the part is going to be. The part's going to be on this side, so I'm work my way towards the part so that the last curl that I do will be the one on the very top. And that one will be most perfect. Hopefully they'll all be perfect. It's always a bit of a struggle to get these last ones on because you have less of a nest to put the dowel into, kind of just resting it on itself. See how it's kind of uncoiled, like down here? And then I'll slowly coil it, which helps me get the entire circumference of the bottom of the curl. Kind of like a roast pig. There's a gay joke in there somewhere, I'm sure. Ow, ooh, ooh. Almost cool enough. Almost cool enough. Almost cool enough. Wonderful. All right, those are all of the curls. Isn't that crazy? Look how much hair is on this wig. I guess it is like 3 different wigs that I took apart. It's about 2.7, 2.5, 2.75 wigs. Isn't that so fun? Now I am going to let this wig just sit here for a little bit before I start styling it because the curl is going to hold based on it coming down to room temperature. And even though the hair isn't hot at all anymore, it's still setting. And I'm doing this upside down just to kind of get the curls to coil back into themselves. So as they're setting, the curl is remembering the curl as best it can. I wouldn't like brush it out until I start styling it. So I'll see you in a little bit. And we're back. It is the next day. I know I said that we would be back in just a little bit, but I could not look at this wig anymore. So I had to just put it away for the day. It is a new day. We are now on day 3 of working on this wig. I've been wearing these clothes for 3 days now because continuity is important, but I'm starting to smell. So I'm determined to finish this wig today. It was also 80 degrees 3 days ago when I decided to wear a tank top for this video, and now we are in the middle of an atmospheric river. So if you see me shiver, it's because a storm's a-coming, ma. So I like to use an array of tools. I have 5 of them. The first one is a paddle brush. I like the metal pronged ambassador paddle brush. It is the best one I've found. Then I have a bristle paddle brush, as so. This is what I use to make big balls of teasing. It's easier to gnat a lot of hair and make a big mound of things. So I probably won't be using this a ton because I'm not going to make this wig super big. Then I have a smaller bristle brush. This is for more of a deliberate teasing action when I need more control over where my teasing is going and how big it is. Then I have just a rat tooth comb. This is for separating hair and pushing the teasing inward. And then I have one of these pronged combs, and this is for also patting the teasing into the head and also ratting hair. As far as hairsprays and glues, I like to use a mixture of 2. Sometimes I use Got2b, but I find that Got2b, you can get those white flakes a lot. So if I'm using hair with, I guess I could use Got2b for this. Forgot this doesn't have a root. But for today, I'm just going to use my regular, standard Aquanet, love Aquanet, and Pump It Up spray. This is my glue spray, so I'll use this to really cement where I need it to be cemented. And this is more of a spray for all over kind of shading. First thing we're going to do is cut it just a little bit. I want most of the length, but the bang is far too long, and I want this to be not all the way over here. So I'm going to section the hair a little bit and just pull the hair on the lace forward. And then I take my thinning shears. I pretty much only cut hair with thinning shears. I've seen some wig stylists do some really amazing things with regular shears by like cutting vertically. I don't know how to cut hair, so I just use thinning shears. I find this to be the easiest way to make it not look too abrupt, like a child cut her own bangs. And then I just kind of like shave off hair. And I'm giving it, I like to measure it like based on the wig block. And I'm like, okay, I'm cutting right where this thing is. And then I can use that as a marker for when I cut the next piece. And this is just going to give the bang less weight and make it prettier. I'm going to pull some hair from the top of the hair and then match the cut I just made to build out the bang a little bit. Just kind of pull the hair, see how it compares to what I just cut, and split the difference. I like to think of this as like carving a block of marble, you know? You just kind of whack at it until you're happy with it. I don't know how that's how marble sculptures are made, but that's how I imagine they are. See, and now this bang is looking a lot more manageable, because if that hair is super long, sometimes you want the bang to be really long if you're doing a very defined Marcel wave and you want that hair to start here and end here. But this is going to be kind of a tousled, throw around hair, so I want a little bit of layers in the front. Now I'm going to do the other side of the part and do the same thing. Just shave off a little bit and then keep matching that first cut, pulling hair, splitting the difference. I'm really not cutting much off at all. Normally, for a lot of my styles, I cut a lot of hair off. I really like layering, but for this, I want long, wavy hair. That already looks so much better. Now, you can either start from the back of the wig, pull all this hair up, and build your teasing like a house, like build the foundation first and then build on top of it, or you can start at the lace and work your way back. Today, I'm going to start from the front all the way back because I'm not going to be teasing a ton in the back, so I care more about the teasing in the front. So I want less going on while I'm doing that teasing so I can make sure that that is correct. I'm going to start at the very front. I'm going to take my paddle brush for big teasing, and I'm just going to kind of pull down, make a little nugget of teasing, split it in half, tease it again, and then I take my comb, and then I pack that down. And that's what's going to keep this from being like an amorphous cloud that moves all over the place. Packing it in really, it's like making bricks. You know, you want to compress the bricks. I also don't know how bricks are made, but this is, actually, no, I do know how bricks are made because I've seen archaeology documentaries and like mud bricks where like they press them down and they, I don't know how I Got on a tangent. Anyway, it's like building bricks. And then, if you've built your bricks nicely, when you're done, you have a very nice house of bricks. The teasing I'm looking for is probably only about that tall so that it is lifted, but it's not. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like Pamela Anderson in Barbed Wire, which is an amazing movie if you've never seen it. Sleeper Head. This is what it's looking like. Sometimes then I grab my little tooth-pronged comb and I use that to grab the really amorphous teasing and push it into its brick form. This is old hair. This teasing is coming really easily. It's just, all I have to do is knock it a couple times with the brush and it's already knotted. Sometimes when there's certain colors and textures of new hair that are just really hard to tease. The hair is so slick that it doesn't want to gnat, and I have to work so hard just to get a little bit of height. This is the muscle-intensive portion of wig styling. Now I'm going to take my Pump It Up spray, my cement spray, and spray on the teasing. Some wig stylists don't like to hairspray while they're teasing. They wait until the very end, which I understand, because when hairspray dries, it'll harden, and that bond isn't super strong. So when it moves, it'll flake and it'll break, and then it no longer has the structural integrity, which is the purpose of hairspray. So inevitably, when I'm done teasing this and styling it, this hairspray is going to be dry and it's going to break, and it's not necessarily going to be doing its job anymore. But I'm putting it here because when I'm done styling, I'm going to take my Aquanet and nail the inside of the cap, and that's going to soak the cap with alcohol, which will reactivate the hairspray. It'll get wet again, and then it'll dry back. I'm placing the glue here so that I can reactivate it later, is what I'm trying to say. And that's also a good tip for if you do have those white, flaky, dandruffy things from flaked off hairspray. You can get rid of them by spraying it with, I use 91% alcohol. If you can get 99% alcohol, that's even better. You can spray it on there and that will reactivate the hairspray. You can smooth it over and it will be as if you had just sprayed it. Sometimes with really old wigs, I've sprayed so much hairspray on the wig, I just don't want to put any more on it because it's too caked on. And so alcohol spray is the best way to just wake it back up. They do your job. I make a little nugget of teasing, and then I split it in half, and then I use this leverage point to push the teasing down and make more teasing. And I find that 1-2 punch to be a very effective. When you've gotten a couple bricks done, as I'm about to have, you want to kind of meld them together with your big tooth comb so that it becomes one big brick in between bricks that keeps them together. They're kind of two independent pieces of teasing, and then I'll just kind of grab the ends of both of them and then I'll tease them together. And I do this as I'm going so that I'm building one continuous blob of ratted hair, not individual nuggets of teasing that sometimes can fall apart a lot easier. Now I'm just going to finish teasing the top of this, then I'm going to do the sides and the back. The wig has been teased. I think it looks great. Going back to my earlier analogy about the block of marble, this is like building up the block of marble, and now we're going to chisel it away into the beautiful style that it was always meant to be. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of smooth out the top with my paddle brush. I'm not trying to brush the hair, I'm trying to smooth the hair, because you don't want to actually brush out all the hard work you did teasing it. So you're giving it a really light brush and just getting that first layer to have all the hair going in the right direction. Sometimes I'm a little too vigorous while I'm smoothing and I have to go back in and re-tease it, and that's okay. If you realize that something is now too flat and you want it to be bigger, you tease and smooth, tease and smooth, tease and smooth. But hopefully I won't have to do too much of that. Now I'm going to take some of my hairspray and we're going to set the hairline. This just makes the hair want to go away from the face so that when we're styling, we don't have hair flopping all over the place. Take your cement spray, spray a little bit, and then you take your hair dryer. I put it on hot. You may want to use a lower temperature if you don't exactly know what you're doing, but I find hot's fine. This is going to freeze the hair and also make the hairspray dry so that it is a slick, hard surface. Steam is an indirect form of heat. Hair dryers and hot tools are direct forms of heat. So synthetic hair acts differently, and it will crisp up in a way that steam won't make hair harden and crisp up like that. You don't have to do it all at once. We're kind of training the hair to do what we want it to do. So I do it in little spurts because heating up the hair will also make it remember a different shape. Keep smoothing as I go. I'm not hair drying the entire thing because if I hair dried the entire thing, that might make some of the curls fall out, which sometimes I do. If I'm looking to relax a curl, sometimes I'll kind of run a hair dryer through it just to relax it really gently. I'd probably put it on medium, not high, because you can frizz out the hair. Now I'm going to return to my hat pins. I use these for so many different things in wig styling. The part is going to be right here, and the bang is going to flip over on this side, and it's going to hang here. So I'm going to take this hat pin and place it where the curl is going to be flipping over. I'm going to take more boutonniere pins, and I'm going to, in little sections, pin the hair on the other side of the part back, taking the weight off of the hairline so that it can dry the way I want it to and not have to fight gravity while it's drying. Using a lot of pins keeps it from being noticeable because if you were to just do one pin, you might see a bend where the hair is falling over, but if you use a bunch of pins, it I find to be much more invisible. Now, a little trick I found for this little part, so this is where the hair is going to be falling over and going to be really under the origami that I'm going to be doing of the hair. What I like to do is I have a deck of playing cards. Let's see what I drew today. A four of spades. I was like, what if I used tarot cards and use this like I pull a card and this is your reading for the wig I'm styling for you. I should try that sometime. But this is just a four of spades. I take a duckbill clip, my glue spray, I spray that little area, and then I bend the card a little bit with my hand because this is going to be kind of curved, and then I pin the card here. This keeps the pin from making a divot in the hair where you can see where the pin's been. This will give us a clean panel. I'm going to use more hat pins to divide up the weight of this bang so that it's not all laying just from this one hat pin. Shorter ones are a little bit stronger, like the metal is a little bit thicker. So I like to use a mix. And then I'm going to put a pin kind of at the top corner of the card. This is where the bang is going to sit back on top of. Again, so it's not fighting gravity while it's setting. And now I'm going to start styling. I use a rat tail comb to do this because you really want all the hair to be going in the same direction. And I'm just smoothing the top of it. I'm not like combing the hair because that would be a fool's errand. And I'm just gently nudging the hair using the end of the comb to kind of see. I'm combing and then I'm nudging. I'm combing and I'm nudging. You're just kind of suggesting to the wig what you want it to do. You don't want to be too aggressive. Wigs can be very finicky and sometimes they want to do things that you don't want them to do. And you're just saying, hey, what if this is what we were doing today? The power of suggestion. Now, as I'm nudging, what I'm looking to do is have some of this hair turn into a bang. As it gets closer, I'm just nudging, I'm nudging, I'm nudging, I'm nudging. And I'm also pushing this hair back because I want this to fold forward. So as I'm pushing this forward, I'm pulling that back. And I'll grab the hair with two fingers, spread out the hair, because when you fan it out, that's how you get that really pretty bang fantasy, like that. I'm gonna add a couple more pins in here. I actually use the same cotton. I don't know if this is cotton. I think it's cotton. Tape. Cord. It's this stuff. I use it to block the wigs down. I put pins in the end of it. So I stick that into the wig block. And then I take the blocking tape and I use that to make the hair go exactly where I want it to go. So that while it's drying, it has this defying gravity shape. Then I take a T-pin and I just continue that into the next swivel. And see how this pin I put in earlier, this curl is now resting on top of it. Just smooth over. Also making sure that there's not like a bulk of hair right at the end, because if it's too heavy, the bang is going to fall down. See, now we have the second swivel. I'm also not using hairspray yet. I should have mentioned that earlier. That's because as I'm placing the bang, if I were to be using hairspray, it would get wet and it's hard to comb hairsprayed hair. I want to get everything in place before I start gluing. Comb down the back. Now I'm going to use the end of my rat tail comb, and I'm going to do the same thing I did for this bang and just nudge this hair to kind of peek over the part in an attractive way. Okay, now for my next piece of tape, I'm going to wrap it around the entire wig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a place in the curl to make a whole little irrigation channel, making this up as I go along, so that I get a whole divot around. And that's also going to be what holds this down. And then I'm going to wrap it around. See how that's holding that little divot? And it wraps all the way around. And now we're over here. Isn't that pretty? I guess it's not very pretty yet. It will be pretty. Really softly combing. I'm trying not to catch any of the hair that I've worked so hard to section off up here. I'm just brushing this hair down with a comb very, very gently. And if I was doing like a Marcel wave, I would be doing, well, the curl would be a lot curlier, and I would do 4 or 5 of these rows to really get those channels marked in. But because this is more of a loose wave, I'm only going to do 2. And then the rest of the hair is just going to be brushed out, and that's kind of where it expands outward. Yeah. I also have this big mirror here that I like to look at the wig in the mirror, because sometimes it'll look completely different from a couple feet away. And this gives me a little perspective. I think I'm just about ready to nail this with some hairspray and let it set. This is pretty much what I want it to look like, at least at this stage. Now that I have it set, I'm going to take the second band and tighten it so that the divot is a little bit deeper than I want it, because when I take it off, it's inevitably going to expand back outwards. So I set it a little bit tighter than I inevitably want it. And I do that by taking out each side one at a time. And you can use the pin to hold the hair back so that you're not pulling the hair away from the shape that you had so painstakingly set it up with. I'm going to do this in layers. You don't want to put it all on at once, or else the hair will get waterlogged and it'll crunch up. You'll get a weird consistency. That's also how you can get some of those white flakes. I will kind of do a layer all over with my cement spray. And then I'll take my Aquanet and then go over that. And this just kind of, I think, permeates the spray and makes it spread out a bit. And you want to make sure you spray into all those little nooks and crannies that you folded in your hair origami, as I like to call it. And then I'm going to take my diffuser. So now I'm going to let this sit for a while, let the hairspray dry, and we'll take it out of the bindings once everything is set and dry. All right, she's been drying for a while. I think she's ready to be unwrapped. It's like opening a Christmas present. I love this part. Now, I take out the pins first, because those are the ones that will get caught on the hair most easily. Just pull out all of these hat pins. And now I take off the tape. Sometimes the tape will stick to the hair because there's hairspray on the hair, and that'll meld. So I take one of these pins that I just pulled out, and I lay it on the hair while I pull it up, just so that it doesn't take any hair with it. I'll take this off, do the same thing with the hair. You can also use your finger. Nice. And now we're going to take this card off. So I'll take this duckbill clip off, And the same thing can happen with the card as with the tape sticking to the hair. So I'm going to take the end of the duckbill, go under the card, and just peel that off. Great. Did I sew that? Oh God, I think I sewed onto the pin. Well, that sucks. Come on. There we go. Like so. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the lace right now because it's my wig. I leave about a 1/4 inch of lace with it going a little bit closer to the hairline at the widow's peak. Because I don't have to worry about this hitting my sideburns, I don't have to worry about having a little extra lace on the sides to fudge the coverage. There we go. And then I take this lace and I will use it for crafts later. Whew. Let's try her on. Oh yeah. See how the wave is just really, really loose? And when I dance around, this hair is going to move really well, but it's solid enough up here to where it's not going to fly forward. Oh yeah, I just love this. I think I might just wear this around the house for the rest of the day. And so you really wouldn't clock it, hopefully, that this is actually 3 different wigs. And that's all it takes to make a wig. I know that was a very roundabout way of styling a wig, because if you started with a regular new wig base, this would have taken probably less than 1/3 of the time that I spent on it. I'm really happy with it. Oh, I'm just feeling my oats. You know, at the beginning of this process, I wasn't exactly sure what the product, the final product was going to look like, but I'm really happy with it. Here, I'll also give you a little peek inside of the cap. And you can see, make sure you can see all of the little stitches I made in every single weft. And you can see how I really tore up the cap up there. That might come back to bite me. But hey, I got a big head. If there's a little bit more room in there, that's not hurting anyone. Ooh, wig overboard. If you've made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for taking a chunk of your valuable time and spending it with me, watching me really torture myself making this wig. If you have the gall to try this yourself, first of all, I'd be very impressed and I want to hear about it. Show me what it looks like. Or if you are able to use any of the skills that I talked about during this video for your own wig styling, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear how any of this can apply to your wig styling. I'm really excited to interact with the community in a way that I have. I know I've been a bit of an elusive character in the drag wig world, mostly intentionally so. If there's any feedback you have for video producing, if my audio is weird or something, I'm very new to this and I would love any tips at all. So please let me know in the comments. I will not be offended. If you have been entertained at all during this very long video, please give this video a like, give it a share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification bell. I'm going to try to be uploading hopefully every week. We'll see how much. This video took a long time and a lot of work, but hopefully not every wig adventure is going to be a 3-day marathon. I'm glad we got to spend some time together on the internet. My name is Laundra Tyme, or Wigs by Tips, and I'll see you in the next one. You made it to the outro slide. Please follow me on all my social medias that are on the screen right now. Extra special thanks to my husband Bobby for recording all the music that was featured in this video. Remember to give this video a like, drop it a comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this.